what's that other saying people say about like, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does it feel that
They
way?
lie.
Not
No.
okay.
Yeah, I just keep it steady on the magic. Do my thing, I'm healing, it's fantastic. If I fall, rise automatic. You ain't know now, you know. I'm the one rain myself like a tree from the roots. West side girl, cause she lit in the coast. East side girl when she speaks to the roots. Stay 100 cause she on with the truth. Been down struggle, know that it pass. Only going up, yeah, the pain don't last. Ooh, take off. Ooh, take off. Ooh, take off. This is take off, take off, take off. Shorty like Brandy, fight like Monica. What you know about her? Baby girl rising, way to the top. Shaking the world, don't expect her to stop. Purpose so great, she get what she got. Follow her step, cause she following God. What you need more, got a heart full of gold. Even at times when it's raining and cold. Ooh, she bout take off. Ooh, she bout.
What up, what up, what up, y'all? It is your girl, Hannah. But if you were part of the Uprooted Fam, go ahead and call me Ruta. You are watching our newest segment, Uproot Your Thoughts on the Uprooted Network. And y'all, you are really in for a treat. This is the segment that y'all have been waiting for. We are here to start examining our lives, our thoughts, and our trauma as we bridge that gap between the lives that we have and the lives that we want. And you got to remember that you believe what you see. And if we can change what you see, we can change what you believe about yourself, and we can get you to that life. And so when you come to uproot your thoughts, you come into the lab, you come in to figure out, how do I get to that next step? And I'm bringing you guys all types of guests, people that are on that same journey, that are doing the work. And I have found value in what they share and do. So I'm bringing them to y'all. And just before I bring on today's special guest, please, 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 if you have not already done it, hit the subscribe. Okay, it's right there, right on the screen. Hit the subscribe, turn those notifications on. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you go ahead and share, comment, like, and if you are on Apple Podcasts, if you are on Spotify, wherever you are streaming, go ahead and leave us a review. And if you are on the socials, tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe to the Uprooted Network. So today, y'all are in for a special treat. I don't always share people from my personal life, just because I'm a little bit of protective and private in certain ways. But this person has real tremendous value. Someone that I've known for the longest time. We've studied in the same area. We went to San Jose State together. We were just celebrating a wedding together last year, and it is my girl, Marilyn. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello.
Yo, isn't that wild? Just think
I
about
know, you just like brought back so many memories. I was like, we were just celebrating a wedding. Yes.
so for people who don't know, and I don't know if I even put it on the Uprooted page. I know it's on my personal page, but my little Desiree, Marilyn, you call her Desi, for
My
people
best
who
friend.
might
Yeah.
yeah, might get those references throughout this. Yeah, we go back all the way back, San Jose State. I still, it's crazy. I don't remember how you ended up on that floor because I remember.
Okay, so
Listen, God got you, sis. God got you.
he really do, because I came in and I transferred, and I got there. I got to San Jose State, and I was like, just put me in the cheapest dorms, right? Because it was kind of like a last minute decision to go to San Jose State, actually, if you didn't know that. And so I'm like, just put me in the cheapest dorm. And I ended up on the cell floor with Desiree and Kiki. And they're still my best friends till this day. So I was not supposed to be there, but I was there. So yes.
Listen, Oh man. Okay, look, I definitely want to get before we get into the check-in. I didn't know that you wasn't gonna go to San Jose State. What was you about to do before that?
I was gonna go to Sac State.
Oh yeah, you definitely made the better choice.
I made the better
No,
choice. Yes.
no shade, because we got a sorority chapter at Sac
Yeah.
State.
Sorry, Sac
We
State.
love you, but listen, if you from the Bay, you understand. That's it. Like, what's understood doesn't need to be said. We'll leave it at that. But that's so interesting, and the reason why this is funny to us, okay, and it'll lead into your story that you're going to share later, I'm sure, is that I was an RA that year. It was my first or my second year, and when she says the cell floor, that was the floor for engineer. What is it for STEM majors, right? For like engineers, science, math,
Yes.
like all of that stuff. And it was like a very specific community. And then you have Marilyn, and I was like, Marilyn, what were you studying?
I was studying psychology. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Whatever. It was, I guess, oh no, but I'm blessed and I'm happy that I was there.
Yes, it was just so funny. And like, so if people remember, I had my little on too. Like, you wouldn't know, like, her and Kiki are like really smart and nerdy. Like, they're definitely, like, I used to call them engine nerds, and I like don't know if that's correct to say, but that's what I used to call them.
Mm-hmm.
And but they were so hip, right? Like they actually, like, you wouldn't know, like, they were hella social. And I might be making generalizations, but at least from the people that we knew, and like everyone around, we were like, you wouldn't have guessed that they were both in these like hella hard majors. I was like, what are you guys doing today? Like, it would just be ridiculous. But yeah, so if y'all can't tell, we go back to some times, okay? we had a ball in college. Let's just say that. We had a great time. But you know what I just remember? We had that Zumba class together one year. We was in there, sis. We was really in there.
My gosh, you were at that Zumba. Yo, that was lit. I was in the best shape of my life in that moment.
Literally, I'm like, yo, I was so flexible. Like, I could do stuff. Oh man, I'm getting back to that shape, but whew.
Yes. Oh,
we had a time. That's all we
work
just.
On it.
Hey, this is called adulting. We were saying this before we started recording. This is adulting, and so we're here. With that though, speaking of psych, that's our shared background. So I also was studying psych. Marilyn was studying psych, and like indirectly, Desi and Kiki got that psych too. So it was kind of like this tribe, and I really love like y'all's sisterhood, and like just the bond between the three of you is just, it's phenomenal. I am like, oh, I just love it. Like, I love how y'all are, and I know that this is something that y'all regularly practice as well. Like, you check in with each other. This is like, I feel like this is relationship 101, but this is just self-care 101, right? Like, check in. And so I've started incorporating it. This is what we're doing on this segment now. And so I want to check in with my good sis, and I want to ask you, how's your heart? Right? So in one word or in one sentence, tell me, how's your heart right now? What are you feeling? It could be for the day, it could be for the week. Maybe it's been, whatever. Like, what's on your heart now?
I think first word that comes to mind is grateful, and then accomplished. That's what I'm feeling this week. Productive also, which is not always how I'm feeling. So here we are.
Oh, I feel that. There's weeks where I'm like, wow, I got a lot done. Like, pat on the back, because it doesn't always happen. Like, this is not always happen.
Yep.
I love grateful. Um, that's been something that I've been feeling a lot lately too. Do you want to expound on that a little bit? Like, are you feeling like that gratefulness that is just like for the world, for your being, or the season of life that you might be in?
Yeah. I think it's a little bit of everything. I think I often look around and I'm like, dang, this was like the life that I once wished for, right? And like here I am, and I'm in like the profession that I love, and it's I have people around me that love me, and I have a great support system, and like it's just kind of like it's just one of those things where it's like you have to be grateful. You have to notice of like how far you've come, the accomplishments, and just like the community that I am part of. Like it's just phenomenal. So that's where my gratefulness comes from. I practice gratefulness with my clients all the time. So I try to practice that as well for myself.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I've been trying to incorporate that, and like now I feel like it has become part of just how I operate, which was like my end goal, you know. I was like, I want this to be a daily practice of like just being grateful for everything. Because I'd like
Mhm.
remember, I don't know if it was a quote, a theory, where this comes from, because at this point I just got hella random knowledge in my brain. But there was this thought that you can't be grateful and afraid at the same time. And I don't know
Mm,
like if that's
mm,
hella true, but I know that it's worked for me. Like in those moments where I start to feel anxious or whatever, it's like, okay, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, I'm great. Like, and you kind of just pull yourself out of that whatever moment. So definitely love that one. Okay, okay. And then my second question is, what are you giving yourself grace for? Or maybe if you're not yet, what would you like to give yourself grace for?
um, let I guess balance, right? Balance for me is where I'm just trying really hard to um just give myself a little bit of grace, right? I think finding time for everything, as you know, because you are a busy woman. But like making sure I make enough time for work, and making sure I make enough time for friendships and relationships and family, and et cetera, and myself, right? So it's like sometimes it's okay to say no, right? Like I just like working on that for myself. So balance as a whole is where I'm just like, you got this, you'll get there. Just find the balance.
I get this like I feel like I just got this question yesterday actually about how do I balance like my commitments or say no? And
Mhm.
I wonder too if it's the same for you because I feel like so in that conversation that I had with the friend, because we're both entrepreneurs, it was kind of in that context of like you can get over committed to projects or also because we're both heavily involved in the community, you can get tapped on the shoulder for a bunch of things just because you're visible, just
Mhm.
because you're there and doing the work. It's like, oh, you're doing great, let me ask you to help with more stuff. Like, what? Go ask
Mhm.
the five other people who are sitting there, they're not doing nothing. Like they twiddling their thumbs. Go give them something to do. I got lots to do right now. And so I know that there was like a lot of cultural expectation for us in terms of how we're supposed to show up. And we didn't go over your background in the intro. So like I don't know if you want to share kind of that cultural background for you too, that there's this expectation to show up and volunteer your time and your resources for free all the time in the community. And it's like you're like, yo, how am I gonna pay these bills though?
Yeah. Yeah. Um Culturally, yes, I identify as a Latina, second generation immigrant. So absolutely right. You say yes to everything. You have to do everything that you are asked, and you always have to show up. So I definitely feel that. and I think saying no is almost like taboo, right? You're like, I can't say no to anything because I'm gonna be a bad friend or a bad daughter or a bad niece. Who knows, right? But it's like always that expectation of um you're so smart and well educated. Like, let's ask you to help, right? For everything that comes around. Which in part is like great because people trust you and things like that, right? And the other part of that is like you have a lot of on your plate all the time, which I'm sure you can relate to.
Yeah, I be I be telling people, they're like, "Oh, why didn't you go into clinical?" And I was like, "Yo, even when I didn't go into clinical, what do you think we're doing right now? This is free therapy. Like, this is free
Mm-hmm.
therapy for y'all." And like, what people don't see is that I've had 5 similar conversations before I even brought it to the podcast. So whether I went
Mm-hmm.
clinical or not, I'm still doing the work. Like, it just doesn't get
Absolutely.
avoided because it's a skill set that's always needed. You know what I mean? And it's like, y'all were laughing at me when I told you I was majoring in it, and now everybody wants some mental health help. Like, let me tell you,
Ah, yes.
it's it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful. But I digress. So, actually, I want to talk to you about that because I know what my journey was like getting into this field. I know that it's not as popular in the Latin culture as well. Like this concept of mental health, they're like, "What do you mean talk? Like you want me to talk about what?" Right? Because I grew up in San Jose, and so I know, like I've had firsthand experience, but I want you to kind of share that journey for you of coming into this and then now actually going clinical, right? Because that is a journey in and of itself. Grad school, right? Your hours that, because some people ask me, they're like, why didn't you go? I was like, nah, Marilyn, you talk about your journey, and then they're gonna be like, I understand why she chose not to do it.
Yes, I since I'm in the thick of it right now, I'm gonna say you made the right choice to not go clinical. But I love it here. We are just positive vibes. So San Jose State psychology. I actually started at a community college here in San Pablo at Contra Costa College. So I started there, and I um was inspired by this psychology teacher, and I just dove in. And so then I transferred to San Jose State and did my undergrad there. And I got this job in Concord working for like a Head Start. And I was a family advocate was my title. And so
Mm-hmm.
basically, I helped the families of the preschoolers like just develop goals and get them the resources to be able to like obtain those goals, right? So we went through like health, um, environmental, housing, money, mental health, right? And so as
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing all these uh, meetings with like the moms, a lot of them came up and was like, well, I would actually love to talk to somebody, right? A lot of them were like immigrant or refugee women that this country with without knowing the language, no money, with no nothing, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
traumatizing. So they were like, oh, I would, yeah, I'd love to talk to someone. So I'm like looking for resources. I could not find a therapist that spoke Spanish within like a 20-mile radius. And I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
wow. So I was like, I'm going to go to grad school and I'm going to be that therapist that I Spanish speaking therapy. And so I did. So I went to the Wright Institute in Berkeley and I graduated. Oh, so fun for me was that COVID hit while I was in grad school. So I went from in person to virtual. And I started actually my clinical journey as like doing therapy and stuff totally online. So you can just imagine when I finally like went back in person, I was like, how to be an in-person therapist. I'm better now. But yeah, here I am. I am about 1,000 hours away from being able to be eligible for licensure. That means that I will be able to take an exam that is going to tell me whether I can be a therapist or not. So it's a journey. It's it's me of hours and paperwork and learning, just a lot of learning. So yeah, here I am. I am a therapist at it's called the Trauma Recovery Center, and I'm here for it. And I think my caseload is about 70% Spanish. So I am work that I like got into, and for like the reasons, right, for the population. So yeah, that's my journey that I am still on, still in it.
Dang. I don't know if people really peep that you said 1,000 hours. 1,000 hours. Listen, I don't
I
think people
need,
really
so
like.
in total, you need 3,000 hours. I've done 2,000 already. Just say.
Praise the Lord. I'm like, because it is really like, I remember, so before I went to grad school, I was debating. I actually looked at a few different universities, different out-of-state schools, et cetera, et cetera. I even considered PhD. Now, sis, why was I considering PhD? Listen, I'm just saying, I was like, yo, okay, what's the workload I gotta do? Because I don't know about you, but I was so over writing research papers. Oh my God. It's like the vein of my existence. It's like those research papers, like over and over and over again. And I was like, like, how much am I gonna have to do if I want this PhD? And I was like, oh, not only do I have to write these, you want me to conduct a whole research? I was like, oh my God. Like, like, this sounds like so excessive. Like, it is there. You know what I always think of? That they make us go through all of that. And I'm going to take it back to something that you said, right? You're already working as a therapist. You already have a caseload, but they still want you to take an exam to tell you again that you can be a therapist after you've already proved over 3,000 hours that you clearly can do it, right? Like, oh, like the social sciences and the social professions, they're so worried about doing things like in this crazy chaotic way to me, that I'm like, yo, you guys want us to jump through hoops and hurdles and more hoops and hurdles, but here go any Billy Bob Joe goes to the police academy for like 3 minutes and is out policing the street, and I'm sitting here like, but we got to go through what to help people? Like, that's crazy. Like, I was just like, that don't even make sense. Like, it just, to me, it didn't make sense. And I was like, okay, there's got to be a better way I could do this without having to do all these hours, you know? But doing the life coaching now for me, because I launched it, but I haven't really invested a lot of time in developing it. I was like, yo, I'm still like, there's only so much that I'm going to be able to do with you. You're still going to have to go to a therapist, you know? Like, there's so many loopholes we could use, but for certain problems that people have, you definitely need to go to a therapist. Like, you need to have like a clinician see you, got like a whole development, like all of that stuff, because there's only so much I'm willing to do. But I just, more hats off to you. And the fact that you really like said it, like you saw the problem and you were like, I'm gonna do that and I'm gonna be it, and now you're doing it. I'm like, wow, that's really dope. Like, that's really amazing. And I was like, oh, I get grateful now. It's not that it's like things aren't difficult, but it's like, no, I'm doing the thing that I want to do. Like, what's that other saying people say about like, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life? Does it feel that
They
way?
lie. No.
Okay.
No. I think I often feel like I work most days. No. I think there is some truth to that. I think it's like just rewarding, right? It's like a rewarding place to be. It's a profession, at least for me, to like break those stigmas. I think that was another thing that was like on my like to-do list, or I don't know what to call it, but or my goals, right? Like you said, like in the Latino population, we are actually they call psychologists or therapists, all that, cura locos, so cure crazies.
Oh, wow.
So there's already this stigma of like, oh, I'm going to therapy because I'm doing the work I do now. It's like, it's so great to just have that one person every now and then be like, oh, you make therapy completely what I didn't, is like, or you changed my mind, or et cetera, right? So that's really, I think, where the rewarding part and the like not working a day in your life. Yeah, I work though, but it's that part I think that they're talking about, right? It's like the good feeling. It's like a good tired when you're tired at the end of the night from working.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's like
yeah.
You had like a really good workout. Like you felt like that was effective. I could almost feel the muscles in my booty growing. Like, you know, when you like doing them squats and you're like, yes, like I know by summer it's about to be looking great. Like, you know, like you're just to give people a metaphor, also a slight little mind shift, because I be having to tell myself that when I work out. Like, look, it's gonna be worth it in the end, sis. It's gonna be worth it. Like, I gotta look in the mirror. That's my affirmation. Okay, that's my affirmation to myself. That's so interesting. Like that direct translation, because that's a conversation we've had too. And there's not, so in our language, Tigrinya, there's not I don't believe a direct translation for mental health therapy, etc. And I was trying to think of what they would say, and they do say that like Hangul Zairu or something, like his mind went crazy, you know, or like is spinning or something. But that doesn't describe like the actual role of the therapist or like the healer. And that's been something very interesting, was trying to like express or explain these concepts in, like, for you in Spanish, right? Like trying to translate it into another language, that's gotta be difficult. Like that's gotta be like really difficult, because I just can imagine there's a lot of words that just don't translate at all.
Oh yeah. Oh, you like you don't even know, because it's like you'll, and not only that, like I learned everything in English, right? But it's so I'm learning as I go. Like there was one word which I use often, injuries, and I was like, what is the, like, how do I, like, what is the word? And it's limites, which translates to like limits, which whatever. But it's not only the language, right? If the program I did, which was great, is very, you know, like white cis, like Western medicine type of like learning and teaching, and like are really geared towards a certain like culture that's not my culture, right? So I have so many moments as I'm working with the Latino population, and where I'm just like, what do I do here? Like all these like evidence-based practices, like you know, modalities are not working, like what? And I just have to bring it back to my culture. What would I tell, I work with a lot of like older Mexican women. Like, well, how would I tell my auntie that? How would I tell my tia this, right? How would I get her to and it's working back to your culture, getting back to what you already know. Like that's how when you just twist it around, make it a little bit therapeutic, so that people can actually, you can touch that population that is often overlooked, which for me is like the Spanish speaking population, and just give them that little bit of like help to improve their life, right? So that's, yeah, the translating in my head is it's a lot sometimes. But I do it, and my clients are very patient with me as well. Sometimes I'm like, I'm British. And I've learned that's also humbling, right? And not only that, there's like all these dialects in Spanish, right? People from El Salvador, people from Honduras, people from Veracruz, you know, there's like, I get people from everywhere. And it's like, sometimes the language is not everything, right? Sometimes the dialect is super different. So it's just, yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. We spent the last 2 years as I've been advocating against the war in Ethiopia and on Tigray, and like just kind of reconnecting to my community and trying to do this right. Like this is a safe space for a lot of people, and there's so many. And I always tell people, I'm like, this is not just like a Tigray only exclusive place. It's like the concepts I'm talking about are universal. There's not like they're universal. And because I actually understand cultural context, I always try to use like metaphors, you know what I mean? Like different analogies, things that people can actually relate to. Because I'm like, yes, this is how it operates in our specific community, but I've been around enough communities to understand that if I just tweak a couple words here, it'll apply to theirs too. Like there's something that's like uniquely similar across marginalized people, and is that we have the same oppressors, right? So the same traumas that you all have experienced, we experience as well. And it just might be different varying levels, or it might be like different time periods, but we didn't all experienced it. So that was something else that you had mentioned in your work, is that you're working in a trauma recovery center, right? That has implications that I don't know if everybody really caught on. So you are carrying a heavy workload, and then even bringing that back to like your concept of balance and how your role as, you know, a daughter, just a woman in general, right? Like a friend, a sister, an aunt, whatever your roles are. That's a lot of people who expect to have relation with you and to have like intimate relation with you, and then you're also on a daily basis working and helping people who look like you in your community that are actively dealing with trauma, right? So I'm interested to know what that I guess that transition is, because I'm more let me give context of why I'm kind of asking this, is because I see myself in that same role of, for me, as I was getting the education and as I was drawn to that, there was like a level of respect that wasn't there. And then now that I'm actively doing this work, those dynamics have started to shift for me, and those conversations with people have started to shift for me. And I wonder kind of what your experience with that is like, because to me that directly goes back to like being able to say no to people and like being able to have like yeah, that's not going to work for me, like. So I'm just wondering what has been your kind of transition with it.
Yes. I think I definitely struggled a lot in the beginning, and I burned myself out. I will be the first one to admit it. It was like I got everything right. Like I got this. Yes, I'm a clinician and I'm a therapist, and yes, I'm I'm gonna show up for everybody, and I burnt out. I got to the point where I was just like, of course, imposter syndrome, which is all above me, but it was just like, that was just like, is this the right career for me? I don't think I'm doing, I'm making a different people's lives. And it had to be the balance of what I do, right? And I'm so blessed to be able to have a community of people that I love that are very understanding. I have canceled plans, and I have been like, hey, y'all, I'm tired, right? Like, sometimes my days are heavier than other days, right? If like today was a 6 client day, so that means I'm talking to people for 6 hours out of my day, right, in front of me, and I'm actively like talking to them. So being able to cancel plans, to say no, like you said, right? And I think for me, like just taking time when you need it, right? So for me, it's like, yes, I have 6 clients throughout the day. What does that look like for me, right? Sometimes I know certain clients, if I'm dealing with abuse, things like that are really heavy, I'm gonna take that extra like 30 minutes in between a client instead of that usual 10, right? It's like listening to yourself, like numb to this, because trauma is trauma and like struggle is struggle, and like horrific things are horrific things, and I shouldn't feel like, oh yeah, just on to the next. It's like processing every single thing that I am listening to and checking in with my, it's affecting you. Where is the countertransference? Are you okay? Right? Do you need to go sit in the sun or lay on self-care? But it's just figuring out what works for you and fit everything so that you're not putting too much on your plate, because I was putting too much on my plate. So how do you thin that out of like, yes, I definitely have dinner with a friend at least once a week. You know what I mean? But it's like, I look forward to that because it's like, that's my self-care thing. And it's not like I'm back to back in grad school, right? Like every day or whatever. So finding balance. I think it just comes back to balance, right? And not letting my work be all that I do, because sometimes it feels like it. So giving myself being something else than a bilingual trauma therapist, right? Like I have, like you said, all these other roles that I also fill. So giving that space as well.
I'm wondering for you, there was something that you said in that the imposter syndrome that comes with it, and I wonder how that affects your ability, I guess, to say no to people in certain instances, or how am I trying to word this? Because I consider, like, I see imposter syndrome kind of affecting people in multiple ways, right? And I can see how, like, I've seen in myself that because I have these like achievements or accolades or degrees or whatever, that there's almost like an expectation of me to be able to show up a certain way. And so then I feel like, oh, I do have to say yes to these things, or yes, I can do these jobs, or like I get random people wanting me to like intervene in their their life issues, right? Or like play mediator and I'm like, why do y'all all assume that I can do all of these things, right? And so sometimes like that is like playing on that imposter syndrome feeling in me, is playing on, and it's like, oh, like I should say yes because they're expecting me to say yes. And then on the flip side of that, there's things that actually I am capable of doing, that I am qualified to, like, and I still feel like, dang, am I actually qualified to be doing this? And I'll say no to myself. Like like, well, is that kind of what you experience, or like how are you experiencing imposter syndrome in this field? Because it's hard. Like, oh, you coming to me for healing, and like to have that imposter in you that's like, dang, can I do this?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's I mean, imposter syndrome happened it's I think it shows up, like you said, in different ways, right? I think for me right now is my profession, right? And it stems from grad school when I first got there, and it was like mostly white people. And I was like, "Ooh, I feel uncomfortable," right? Because I'm not used to that. But walking into a space like that, and I think for me, I really leaned on what I was sure of, right? I know that I'm a Latina. I know that like my parents are immigrants, and like I know all these things, and like that's what I leaned on. And so now it's like you're a therapist, and I'll be like, for real, I'm with me. It's like that thing of like I have to, like, I think after was it after graduation, I sat there and like I would wake up every day and I'd be like, I'm a therapist, like what? And so I think that's how it shows up for me. So yeah, it's just imposter syndrome feels like, am I doing this right? And I mean that in
Mm,
like all aspects of my life, right? I feel like oftentimes we get into this field and people in our like personal lives are like, oh, you're supposed to act, you're a therapist now. That's not like the reality, right? Like
mm,
I'm messed up too. Like I have a therapist, right? So it's like
mm.
uh I can't always show up as a therapist everywhere I go. And I think having to tell people like I'm gonna tell you this as a friend, right? Or like saying little things like that is like my way out sometimes of um, you know, just in the field, like I said, being a clinician that is not what a clinician typically looks like, uh,
Mm.
is a struggle, and it's like so rewarding. I love it. So uh, I think that's part of it. It's like living them both, right? Both and like
Yes.
there's not a lot of me, right? There's like they're like, oh, you're in need of like, and it's like, yeah, and we're also not catered to, right? And like how many
That part.
schools are there that teach psychology in Spanish, right? Like who can be my mentor in that space? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's a long-winded way of talking about just imposter syndrome and just feeling sometimes inadequate. Like am I helping people, harming them? Like what is happening? Um, but
Yeah.
there's always those gems to remind you that you are on the right path.
Yeah. But also that you're trailblazing, right? In a way. And I want you to speak on or I was gonna call it initiative, but your other project that you're starting now with the bilingual therapist, right? So because there's a couple things that I heard in that, and that stuck out to me that I could relate to, right? Is like, and I've said this in various ways before, is like that feeling of inadequacy, that feeling of like, am I enough, right? So when I was going through and learning about affirmations, it I don't know if you've come across Marissa Peer, but she has like that whole philosophy around that all of our problems are rooted in that idea that we are not enough, and that like breeds all the insecurity in us. And so her affirmation, and I've shared this before on the podcast, but like that literally is the affirmation that she forces people to start with, is like, I am enough. And she was like, write it on your mirror. And you know me, I'm a literal person. Okay. Like, I was like, you know what? I've been learning about this stuff. Let me try applying a couple things. And so she said that she wrote it on her mirror with red lipstick. So what did I do? I went and got my red lipstick and I wrote it on my bathroom mirror. And I was like, at first I thought it was really weird. And then I kept doing it, and it feels real natural now, right? So like I've had friends come to me and they're like, what affirmations are you doing? Like, what are you working on? I was like, well, it just changes by the day. But now they just kind of flow out of me, as to like where before I had to search for them, and I would be like really trying hard, and I'd be like, I'm enough. I am enough. Like I would like, be real low with it. And now it's like I can look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, you enough. You've always been enough. You always gonna be enough. And I'm like, it's a whole speech that I can give myself now, because I'm figuring it out for all of us. Like, like you can join in, you can support, you can help me help you, because I literally am you. That's it. Like, the reason why you can relate to me is because I am you too. Like, I am also going through the struggle. I think something powerful in what you said is like, you're a clinician, that's your job, right? That's a title. Usually people, if
Mhm.
people can understand that, like, if you get to work and you get to do what you want to do at work, or what you need to do at work, you leave, you clock out, and then you have a personal life, and you have other things that you're doing, and like, you have been on this journey of learning and growing into this profession. Like, LeBron wasn't LeBron his first year. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, he was good. Like, let's not like discount the man, but he wasn't the greatest of all time, right? Like, now he kind of has that GOAT stature, but he had to really work and put that effort and that time in. just as like any of us who are trying to do this community healing, like, bruh, first of all, we're babies. Like, we're not that grown yet. Like, this adulting thing, we're at the beginning stages of this whole adulting life and like being responsible for things. It's like, yo, you as a 50-year-old coming to therapy because you didn't deal with issues when you were my age. So what you mean, player? Like, come on, Brody. What, I just got some wisdom. I just got some tools, right? Like, I'm trying to share this with you. But I too am going through that. Like, I too, like, can you remember when you were 30 and you were also trying to figure out life, right? So I love that you said that. I love that you said I need a therapist too, right? Because there was another word that you said in there that stuck out that I wanted you to expand on for people who might not know. I think you said countertransference, and that is something when you start to do this healing work, when you're someone who chooses to be present and like really care and you're in those intimate relationships with folks, that can happen all the time. And that does lead to that burnout of like, yo, I am exhausted. So can you kind of expand on that a little bit and touch on after that, like kind of how that maybe ties into what you're trying to do with your bilingual mental health?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Countertransference, I think, is it's hard to deal with as a clinician. Kind of like you're taking on your client's stuff, basically, right? And like it gets heavy, right? And like with that, kind of on that same like place is it's called vicarious trauma. And so I have realized that I get some pains if you're taking in a lot of trauma, right? So like for me, I have just all day and we work with it. And the vicarious trauma for me comes in where it's like I'm starting to take on the symptoms of my clients, right? I'm hyper vigilant. I'm right, like because I'm already feeling unsafe in this world, and that is just because of the work I do. I have to notice that about myself. And the countertransference is kind of like that, but on a smaller scale, where it's like the things that you're hearing are affecting your mood, who you are, and it's almost like you're a therapist, everybody, that like we are people too. We have our own opinions, we have our own biases, like all these things, right? And like sometimes that we get or what we carry, like it shifts things, right? And you have to check yourself. Oh, am I being biased with this client because they look like me or whatever? So it's like a constant like battle with yourself at times, right? So yeah, it's just been a journey when it comes to, I think, understanding that about myself and like when it happens and like checking myself. And I have to tell my therapist like, oh, I had to check myself real quick during that session, right? Because it just means like it's not about me right now, it's about this person in front of me that needs help. That's kind of where, and then that leads to burnout because you're carrying a lot, right? You have to leave your clients, but you need to leave it somewhere. I leave it in my office. I leave it where, I need to leave it. You can't carry that with you because that is not yours to carry. And I had to learn that, right? Because I sometimes think about my clients all day and be like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna best help this person? Checking your countertransfer and vicarious trauma, just check yourself. And I think this, what you alluded to, kind of like my new little Instagram, mental health. I don't really know where I'm going with it yet. I just kind of was like, everyone else kind of does it. I just want a place where even small daily tips, right? Like, how do I do that? Oh, you put a post-it note about what you love about yourself, or like whatever it is. Little tips, right? Like daily tips, breathing, mindfulness, grounding. How do we do it? How can we best reduce anxiety and stress? And, tips for depression, which are diagnoses out there, and also psychoeducation. Psychoeducation just means I'm giving you a little bit, giving you my knowledge on different diagnoses or like mental health myths, things like that. That's kind of where I'm hoping to get my little creative hat on, so that I can really start putting content up there to do it. So thank you.
No, for sure. I'm like excited for that, just because I do obviously see people in the space, and I'm on social, so I have hacked my algorithm so that I literally only see like things that are going to positively impact my life. Like, I don't follow the shade room. No diss out, right? It's just like I don't follow certain platforms because, like you said, right, you're taking on a lot of trauma in your actual day-to-day already, right? Like, there's something that you said too, in that, like, that you already feel unsafe as a woman in this world, right? Where we're constantly targeted. And then when you put on our ethnic cultural identities, plus we live in the Bay, right? So there's like all these other extremes. Like, your clients are telling you, right? Your clients are telling you the trauma. I'm sure there's domestic violence, right? I'm sure there's drug addiction and abuse. I'm sure there's some type of child abuse or neglect, right? Homelessness. There's so many things that, like, we're constantly bombarded with in our direct communities. Like, when I am driving around on the streets, I'm seeing our people. I'm seeing Black and brown folks that are really suffering the worst of these consequences. So I just commend you for wanting to provide that in a language that they can actually understand, and in an applicable way, right? Like, that's what I try to do. I try to like break things down to be like, you can apply this. Like, the key to your mental health, there's not a pill that's going to fix everything. I don't care what they tell you. Like, you still have to do the work. And I think, like, what people get hung up on is, well, what's the work? Right? And like, okay, now we can have a conversation. The work is all of these little daily habits, these mindset shifts, these like learning how to pause. What you said, the self-awareness to check yourself, right? In the moments where you are bringing your issues onto somebody else. I see in my relationships now that I'm always like, before I give advice to somebody and they tell me, I'm like, oh, okay, I may be projecting here because I've dealt with something similar, you know? And I try to always kind of preface things of like, I might be bringing a little bit of myself into this because that's the context I understand it in. Or I can also tell you what I've read, right? Or I could share a resource of somebody else that has like talked more on this topic. But that's about as much as I can give you. Right? Like, I can't help you any other way but to use the tools that I have accessible. And then also just have the self-awareness when the problem is too big for me. Like, this is not for me, y'all. Like, woo, I can sit with you through this as a friend. I could hold your hand, but I probably am not going to be the one that has like the tools to help you get out of this one. For me, I think like this is really helpful for people to understand in terms of like doing the healing work or wanting to be somebody in the healing space, that it doesn't mean that you're going to be perfect, that you're going to be like, oh, you're so much more healed than your clients. Like, that's not the truth, right? Like, and I feel like I've been learning that over and over and over again. And this podcast, especially because I'm in front of people, right? I'm up for public criticism in the things that I share. And it's like, oh, that imposter was trying to beat me up. And I had to remember, like, no, I'm like what you said, I'm also human. I also have things going on. And the difference is that I've spent time in this field trying to really understand where our problems stem from, what they're rooted in, like, and what are the tools that we have to dig them out, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like what are the tools that we have to like build another foundation and to, you know, to create whatever it is that we need to create. And so on that note, where we like to end our conversations here on Uprooted is in that realm of what we're trying to leave behind or what we're trying to build and grow and create. So I want to ask you, thinking back on you know, kind of your journey, what are some things that you might want to be rerooting yourself in, or what are the seeds that you want to plant for yourself and just for the future behind you?
Yeah. Rooted in my community, I think. It's really where it comes down to, right? The community that I live and I work in, and the community that I have built for myself, reroot myself in that, really lean on those. And that has been this year's kind of resolution for me, is to be able to
Mm-hmm.
lean on my friends and my loved ones, and that I don't have to take on everything by myself. Um, Planting seeds such as check in with yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Slow down, smell the roses, literally be mindful, right? Get off your
Mm-hmm.
screen, take that moment for yourself, right? Eat an apple and really be like, I'm eating this apple. Just be
Yeah,
mindful, be in the moment, ground yourself. You will never get this moment back. So enjoy it, live in it. Um,
that part.
that's where I leave you.
Okay. Any seeds for the future of bilingual health?
Ooh, we gonna get it going. Uh, Let me know what you would like to see on there. I am hoping to um start kind of that journey with bilingual mental health. I'm not really liking the name. We might change that a little bit, be a little bit more unique. But I'm really trying to make it more me, is what I'm trying to say,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not have it be just like bilingual mental health. Like, no, what does that mean for me, right? So maybe
Yeah.
renaming it, and then just starting putting like daily, even affirmations or daily quick mental health tip, right? Like
Yeah.
sharing
Okay,
with
okay.
everyone what I have learned.
Okay. I love it. I think it's gonna be a beautiful journey for you to go on. And so what I like to do is affirm my guests. And it's just kind of naturally happen because it's what I do anyways. And so it's like my favorite part on the show. Like, yes, it's like, yes, I'm about to like I'm about to shower you right now. Like I like it's like my best, most favorite part of every show. And what I want to manifest for you, like what I want to affirm for you as someone who has done the journey that and like is on the journey that you're about to go on, like expanding kind of your scope and your spot in the community, like putting yourself out there in the social media world because there are some interesting parts of it, sis. And whenever you need to talk about it, I got you. Um, I just want to affirm for you that you're going to understand the power of your voice and that you're going to understand the power of your story and you're going to be able to tell it in such a beautiful and articulate way because you've gone through the journey that you've gone through and that you're like the time and the effort that you're spending right now, like those hours that you're literally putting in the gym, they're all going to make sense once you start creating this space because it's all going to be like, oh, this is what I was meant to do. Like, this is how I get to like be an impact and be the change for my community. It also is going to give you, like, I'm telling you right now, it's going to give you real life practice on the boundaries and like maybe even help you get stronger in it because doing this podcast, creating content and putting myself out there has like grown me in ways that I don't think any classroom would have ever grown me in. And
Mm-hmm.
so I really affirming that for you that because you're now thinking about it in terms of like making sure you have a support system, you're going to go so much further in it. Like, and I really see that for you because I think what you're doing, though I know you personally, so it's like when you bring that the full Marilyn, you know, the full Marilyn into that space, and you kind of take off the, the stereotypical clinician hat that they try to give you, like the amount of people that are going to be healed just off of that, like it's going to be super dope. And I'm glad I'm in the area so I can pull up on you, like, what you got going, what you cooking up over here, I'm trying to cook up
Yes.
something with you, like I'm a manifest that. I would put that in the collab. I was thinking about this when you were talking, and I'll leave it on this note, is like I created the Create Your Joy, and it's like a fundamentals personal development course. And when you were talking, I was like, yo, this would be so dope if she did this in Spanish. Like, because it's the same skill set and it already exists. So like we're gonna have to talk about this off the recording, but I definitely see that I see like that expansion and that collaboration like existing more, because what you're doing is so needed. And I'm like, yo, I love seeing my peers like really what we were doing and what we were learning and like the impact we wanted to make. We're all like in that world now, and we're doing it, and it's so dope to see. So I just wanted to send that love to you, sis.
Thank you. Oh,
yes.
Thank you. That was amazing. Needed that today. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for coming on. Like, I be trying to tell people, sometimes it's hard to get people to want to come on a podcast. So I was like, she didn't even hesitate. She was like, yes. I was like,
yes. I love this.
Man.
Love the work you're doing. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's really, really been an honor.
And you are welcome anytime. Come back as you're growing and doing the work. And I'm already manifesting a collab. It's going to be really amazing. So y'all, if you aren't already, okay, I'm going to put it on the screen one more time. Make sure you are following Marilyn, okay? Her handles are down there. IG is, I want to say, where you're more active. So Marilyn.v.o and at Bilingual Mental Health. As she said, it's going to keep growing. She's going to keep putting stuff on there. If y'all want to see stuff on there, if there's questions you have or like suggestions, throw them her way. Help her kind of build that community out. And if you have not subscribed and liked and shared this podcast, I don't know what you're doing. Right? Like, what you doing? It's literally free. I'll be so confused. Like, literally, it's free. Like, subscribe, share, like, do all of the things. And yeah, thank y'all. This is another episode of Uproot Your Thoughts. We are out. Peace out, y'all. Y'all, what's good, Uprooted Fam? I really hope you enjoyed that last episode. And the way that you can let me know, hit that like button. Make sure you hit that like button. Please share, okay? If this blessed you, tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell another friend. And that's how we grow. So, again, like, share, and if you are not subscribed, what are you doing? It's free. It's free, y'all. Subscribe. Also, if you have not picked up your merch, hey now, say now. Go ahead and hit up uprootednetwork.com. Again, that is uprootednetwork.com. Get your merch, get all your podcast links there. And we're going to be rolling out programming pretty soon, and you're going to want to be registered. I'm just telling you, make sure you are following us and make sure that you are tapping in with your girl. Love y'all all so much. Have a blessed day.